You are not here by accident. Something unseen, something deeper than logic, led you to this exact moment, to these words, to this pause in your life. And if you stay until the end, you may realize that what feels like confusion right now is not a mistake. It is a signal. Because when life is about to change in a profound way, it does not announce itself clearly. It destabilizes you first. You may feel like everything is unraveling. Your sense of direction, your certainty, even your identity. Things that once made sense no longer do. What once felt solid now feels hollow. And the mind, desperate for control, calls this chaos. But this is not chaos. This is transition. Most people never recognize it. They mistake the breakdown for failure. They try to rebuild the same life that is already dying. And because of that, they miss the moment they were meant to evolve. But you didn't scroll past this. That already tells me something. Today we're going to explore 7 signs, not surface-level signs, but deep psychological and existential ones, that indicate your life is on the verge of a major transformation. And if even a few of these resonate, understand this clearly. You are not falling apart. You are shedding an old self. Let's begin. Sign 1. You start questioning everything you once believed. One of the earliest and most unsettling signs of transformation is this. The mental ground beneath you begins to shift. Beliefs you once defended without hesitation now feel fragile. Values you inherited from family, culture, or society no longer sit comfortably in your mind. Goals you once chased now feel strangely empty. You begin asking questions you never allowed yourself to ask before. Who am I really? Why am I living this way? Is this life actually mine, or one I adapted to survive? This isn't intellectual curiosity. It's existential disruption. The old mental structures that once gave you certainty are cracking. And yes, that feels terrifying. Certainty feels like safety. Losing it can feel like losing yourself. But this discomfort is not a flaw in the process. It is the process. From a shadow perspective, this is the beginning of individuation. When the unconscious starts pushing against the false identity you've been living inside. The masks begin to slip. The roles you played to be accepted, loved, or safe begin to feel unbearable. Your psyche is telling you something important. The old framework can no longer contain who you're becoming. This phase often feels like confusion or even anxiety. The world suddenly feels unfamiliar. Things that once felt right lose meaning. And the mind panics, searching for something solid to hold on to. But here's the truth most people never hear. You are not lost. You are between selves. And questioning is not a detour. It is the doorway. Sign 2. You feel disconnected from your past. At some point, you notice something subtle, and then impossible to ignore. Your past no longer feels like home. People you once felt deeply bonded to now feel distant. Conversations that once energized you now feel repetitive or empty. Even memories that used to define you carry less emotional weight. It's not that something dramatic happened. It's that something inside you changed. This disconnection doesn't arrive loudly. It creeps in quietly. A loss of interest. A lack of emotional resonance. A sense that you've outgrown a version of yourself you once worked hard to maintain. This is where many people feel guilt. They think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I be the person I used to be? But this isn't rejection of the past. It's completion. From a psychological standpoint, this is identity dissolution. The ego structures built for an earlier phase of life have served their purpose. And now they are becoming restrictive. Growth requires release. And release often feels like grief. You may mourn who you were. You may feel nostalgic for a life that no longer fits. But that mourning is sacred. It marks the end of unconscious living. You cannot return, not because you failed, but because you evolved. Sign 3. What once felt important now feels meaningless. Another sign appears when your internal value system begins to collapse. Things that once motivated you, status, approval, productivity, appearance, comparison, suddenly feel hollow. You still understand why they mattered, but they no longer move you. Success as defined by the world loses its grip. And this can feel deeply destabilizing. If you've spent years orienting your life around external validation, losing interest in it can feel like losing your compass. You may even feel lost or empty. But this emptiness is not absence. It's space. Space for something more aligned. This is where the shadow becomes active again. Because much of what we pursue unconsciously is compensation. Attempts to outrun shame, fear, or inadequacy. When you no longer need those compensations, the illusion collapses. You begin sensing that meaning does not come from accumulation, but from alignment. Not from being admired, but from being authentic. This shift can be lonely at first. You may feel out of sync with the world around you. But loneliness here is not punishment. It's initiation. Sign 4. Your intuition becomes louder than your fear. As the old identity dissolves, something else strengthens. Your intuition. At first, it's subtle. A gut feeling you can't explain. A sudden clarity about a decision you used to overthink. A quiet certainty that pulls you towards something, or away from it. You start trusting yourself in a new way. Not because you have all the answers, but because you can feel when something is aligned. Fear doesn't disappear, but it stops being in control. From a shadow perspective, intuition is the voice of the unconscious integrating with consciousness. It's the part of you that sees patterns before the rational mind can articulate them. As you listen more closely, life begins to feel less chaotic. Synchronicities appear. Encounters feel meaningful. Choices feel guided. You stop forcing outcomes. You start following signals. This doesn't make life easy, but it makes it coherent. Sign 5. You develop an intense desire for growth and self-honesty. At this stage, stagnation becomes unbearable. You feel a pull, not toward distraction but toward expansion. Books, ideas, conversations, and experiences that challenge you begin to call your attention. You are no longer satisfied with surface-level living. You want truth, even if it hurts. This is where shadow work becomes unavoidable. You begin confronting patterns you once ignored, emotional wounds you buried, beliefs that quietly sabotaged your life. And instead of running from them, you turn toward them. Not because it's comfortable, but because it's necessary. This hunger for growth isn't about self-improvement. It's about self-reclamation. You are no longer trying to become better. You are trying to become whole. Sign 6. You feel compelled to leave toxic relationships and environments. One of the most painful signs of transformation is this. You can no longer tolerate what once drained you. Relationships built on manipulation, imbalance, or emotional suppression begin to feel unbearable. Environments that once felt familiar now feel heavy, and you can't unsee it. This isn't arrogance. It's awareness. As your self-respect grows, so does your intolerance for self-betrayal. Letting go is rarely dramatic. It's quiet. It's the moment you stop explaining yourself. Stop justifying your pain. Stop shrinking to maintain peace. You realize something critical. Staying costs you more than leaving. And choosing yourself is not selfish. It's survival. Sign 7. You feel detached from everything that no longer aligns. The final sign is not explosive. It's calm. A quiet detachment from what no longer resonates. Old fears lose intensity. Old habits lose their pull. Old identities feel distant. You are no longer fighting the change. You are allowing it. This is integration. The shadow is no longer running the show from beneath the surface. It has been seen, acknowledged, and partially integrated. What remains is clarity. You understand that letting go is not loss. It's alignment. If these signs resonate, understand this. Your life is not breaking down. It is reorganizing around truth. Transformation rarely feels empowering while it's happening. It feels disorienting, lonely, unstable. But on the other side of this process is something rare. A life that belongs to you. Not one inherited. Not one performed. Not one survived. But one consciously chosen. And if you're walking this path right now, you're not behind. You're ahead. This is not the end. It's the threshold. And what comes next depends on whether you're willing to keep walking.